An unexpected encounter. The desolate plains of Novus 3 stretched as far as the eye could see, a sea of rust-colored sand, broken only by the occasional jutting rock formation. Amidst this barren landscape stood a solitary structure, Outpost 42, humanity's farthest-flung research station in the Orion Arm. For most, an assignment to this remote corner of the galaxy would be a punishment. For Dr. Eliana Carter, it was a dream come true. Eliana wiped the sweat from her brow as she tightened the final bolt on the outpost's malfunctioning atmospheric regulator. The sweltering heat of Novus 3's twin suns beat down relentlessly, but she barely noticed. Her mind was focused entirely on the task at hand, lost in the intricate dance of gears and circuitry. There, she muttered to herself, giving the regulator a satisfied pat. That should keep you running smoothly for another cycle. As she gathered her tools, a flashing light on her wrist-mounted communicator caught her attention. With a few quick taps, she brought up the alert, an unidentified object entering Novus 3's atmosphere at high velocity. Eliana's heart raced. In the 6 months since she'd arrived at Outpost 42, nothing remotely interesting had happened. Now, something was about to crash land practically on her doorstep. Without hesitation, she sprinted to the outpost's garage and fired up the rugged terrain vehicle. As she sped across the alien desert, her mind raced with possibilities. A meteorite. Unlikely given its controlled descent. Space junk. Possible, but improbable this far from established trade routes. That left only one thrilling option: first contact. The object streaked across the sky, a ball of fire leaving a trail of black smoke in its wake. Eliana pushed the terrain vehicle to its limits, determined to reach the crash site before the trail dissipated. As she crested a final dune, she saw it, a sleek, silver craft unlike anything humans had ever built, half buried in the sand. Eliana approached cautiously, her excitement tempered by the very real possibility of danger. The ship's hull was scorched and buckled in places, clear signs of a rough entry. As she drew closer, a hatch on the side of the craft suddenly hissed open. Instinctively, Eliana ducked behind a nearby rock formation, her heart pounding. She peeked out, watching as a figure emerged from the ship. She, was humanoid in shape, but that's where the similarities ended. The alien stood nearly 7 feet tall, with iridescent blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the harsh sunlight. Instead of hair, a crest of feather-like appendages adorned its head, rippling gently in the hot breeze. The alien stumbled, clearly injured from the crash. Without thinking, Eliana rushed forward to help. "Easy there," she said, knowing the alien couldn't understand her, but hoping her tone would convey her intentions. "Let me help you." The alien's eyes widened, all 4 of them, as it registered Eliana's presence. It spoke, a melodious series of clicks and whistles that Eliana couldn't begin to decipher, but the fear and pain in its voice were unmistakable. "It's okay," Eliana said soothingly, slowly approaching with her hands raised to show she meant no harm. "I'm here to help. My name is Eliana." The alien seemed to study her for a moment before nodding slowly. It gestured to itself and made a sound that Eliana interpreted as a name: Zura. "Zura," Eliana repeated, smiling. "It's nice to meet you. Let's get you somewhere safe, and then we can take a look at your ship." As Eliana helped Zura to the terrain vehicle, her mind was reeling. First contact, right here on Novus 3. And not just any first contact, but one that would require all of her engineering skills to help this alien visitor repair their ship. It was everything she had ever dreamed of and more. Back at Outpost 42, Eliana worked quickly to treat Zura's injuries. Thankfully, despite the alien's exotic biology, the basics of first aid seemed to apply. As she worked, Eliana couldn't help but marvel at Zura's otherworldly beauty. The alien's skin wasn't just blue, it was a living canvas of swirling patterns that shifted and changed with every movement. Once Zura was patched up, the real work began. Using a combination of gestures and crude drawings, they managed to communicate the basics of Zira's predicament. The ship's main power core was damaged in the crash, leaving it unable to break free from Novus 3's gravity well. Without repairs, Zira would be stranded. Eliana's eyes lit up at the challenge. "Don't worry," she said, giving Zira's hand a reassuring squeeze. "We'll figure this out together." Over the next few days, Eliana and Zira fell into a rhythm. They would spend hours at the crash site, Eliana marveling at the advanced technology, while Zira patiently explained, as best she could, how it all worked. In the evenings, they would return to the outpost, sharing meals, and attempting to bridge the vast gulf of language and culture that separated them. Eliana learned that Zira was an explorer, much like herself. Her people, the Azurians, were a peaceful race dedicated to scientific discovery and cultural exchange. Zira had been on a solo mission to chart this section of the galaxy when her ship had malfunctioned, sending her crashing to Novus 3. As the days turned to weeks, Eliana found herself growing increasingly fond of her alien visitor. Zira's curiosity about human culture was insatiable, and her own stories of life among the stars filled Eliana with wonder. They developed a form of pidgin communication, a mix of simple English words, Azurian whistles, and elaborate hand gestures that allowed them to share complex ideas. But as their bond deepened, so did Eliana's concern. The damage to Zira's ship was extensive, far beyond anything she had encountered before. The power core operated on principles that defied Earth's current understanding of physics. Each day brought new challenges, and Eliana began to fear that her skills might not be enough to get Zira home. One evening, as they sat watching Novus 3's spectacular triple moonrise, Zira turned to Eliana with all four eyes filled with an emotion that needed no translation, gratitude mixed with a deep sadness. "Eliana," Zira whistled softly, using one of the few human words she had mastered. "Thank you for everything." Eliana felt a lump form in her throat. "We're not giving up," she said firmly, taking Zira's hand in hers. "I promise you, we'll find a way to get you home." As if in response to her declaration, a brilliant flash lit up the night sky. Eliana and Zira looked up in awe as a massive ship, easily 10 times the size of Zira's craft, descended through the atmosphere. Its sleek lines and shimmering hull left no doubt. This was an Azurian vessel. Zira let out a series of rapid clicks and whistles that Eliana recognized as excitement mixed with relief. Help had arrived, seemingly summoned by Eliana's very words. But as the ship drew closer, Eliana's elation turned to unease. Something about its approach seemed off, too aggressive, too purposeful. This wasn't a rescue mission. As searchlights from the vessel swept across the outpost, Eliana's blood ran cold. She turned to Zira, whose expression had shifted from joy to terror. "Zira," Eliana said urgently, "what's wrong? Who are they?" Zira's response was a single chilling whistle that needed no translation. "Danger." In that moment, Eliana realized that her promise to help Zira get home had just become far more complicated and far more dangerous than she could have ever imagined. As the unknown Azurian ship loomed ever closer, one thing became crystal clear: the real adventure was only just beginning. The massive Azurian vessel cast an ominous shadow over Outpost 42 as it hovered menacingly above. Eliana's mind raced, trying to process this sudden turn of events. She turned to Zira, whose feather-like crest was now flattened against her head in clear distress. "Zira," Eliana said, fighting to keep her voice calm, "I need you to tell me what's happening. Who are they?" Zira's four eyes darted nervously between Eliana and the looming ship. With a series of rapid clicks and whistles, she began to explain. Eliana struggled to keep up, piecing together the aliens' fragmented communication. "Bad ones," Zira managed in halting English. "Want ship. Want me." Eliana's brow furrowed as understanding dawned. "They're after your technology, and you." Zira nodded vigorously, her iridescent skin pulsing with what Eliana now recognized as fear. "But why?" Eliana pressed, even as she began to guide Zira back towards the outpost. "What makes your ship so special?" Before Zira could answer, a beam of intense light shot down from the hovering craft, scanning the area around them. Eliana pulled Zira behind a rocky outcropping, her heart pounding. She knew the flimsy cover wouldn't hide them for long. "We need to get to your ship," Eliana whispered urgently. "Can it fly at all?" Zira shook her head, letting out a mournful whistle. The crash had left the smaller craft completely grounded. Eliana's mind raced, weighing their limited options. The terrain vehicle was fast, but it would be no match for an alien spacecraft. The outpost defenses were minimal, designed more to ward off Novus 3's native fauna than to repel an extraterrestrial invasion. Their only hope lay in somehow repairing Zira's ship, and quickly. "Okay," Eliana said, making a split-second decision. "Here's the plan. We're going to make a run for your ship. I know it can't fly, but maybe we can get its defenses online. It's our best shot." Zira nodded, her crest rising slightly in what Eliana had come to recognize as determination. Together, they sprinted across the open ground towards the crash site, the sand kicking up behind them as they ran. They had barely made it halfway when another scanning beam swept across their path. This time, there was nowhere to hide. The beam locked onto them, and a moment later, a harsh, grating voice boomed out from the ship above. The language was clearly Azurian, but the tone needed no translation. It was a demand, backed by the threat of violence. Zara responded, her musical voice rising in clear defiance. Eliana didn't need to understand the words to know that her alien friend was refusing whatever ultimatum had been issued. The response was immediate and terrifying. A series of smaller craft detached from the main ship, their engines flaring as they descended rapidly towards Eliana and Zira. "Run," Eliana shouted, grabbing Zira's hand and pulling her towards the crashed ship. They reached it just as the first of the smaller craft touched down, disgorging a group of Azurians that looked nothing like the peaceful explorer Eliana had come to know. These newcomers were clad in sleek, intimidating armor, wielding weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. Eliana and Zira ducked inside Zira's ship, the hatch sealing behind them with a reassuring hiss. But Eliana knew it was only a temporary reprieve. Without power, the ship's defenses were useless. "Zira," Eliana said, her voice tight with urgency. "I need you to tell me everything you can about your ship's power core. There has to be a way to get it running again." As Zira began to explain, her whistles and clicks coming faster than ever, Eliana's hands flew over the alien console. She might not understand the language, but months of working on the ship had given her a decent grasp of its basic systems. If she could just reroute enough emergency power to the shields. A thunderous boom shook the ship, and Eliana knew their time had run out. The hostile Azurians were trying to force their way in. "Keep talking," Eliana urged Zira, her fingers dancing across the alien controls with desperate speed. "I think I almost have it." Another boom, and the ship's hull groaned under the assault. Eliana could hear the sound of cutting tools now. They were trying to slice their way through. Just as despair threatened to overwhelm her, Eliana's hand brushed against a previously dark section of the console. It lit up under her touch, and a surge of energy coursed through the ship. The main view screen flickered to life, displaying a dizzying array of Azurian script. Zira let out a triumphant trill, quickly manipulating the newly awakened controls. A shimmering energy field sprang to life around the ship, and the sounds of their attackers' efforts suddenly ceased. Eliana let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "We did it," she said, allowing herself a small smile. "But we're not out of danger yet. Can we send a distress signal? Call for help?" Zara nodded, her fingers flying over the console. A moment later, a series of pulsing lights indicated that a message was being broadcast. "Who are we calling?" Eliana asked. Zira's response was cut short by another bone-jarring impact. The hostile Azurians had apparently decided that if they couldn't cut their way in, they'd simply batter down the doors. How long will the shields hold? Eliana asked, eyeing the hull nervously. Zura's whistled response wasn't encouraging. They had bought themselves some time, but it was clear that without a more permanent solution, they would eventually be overwhelmed. Eliana's gaze fell on the ship's main power core, the very component that had been damaged in the crash. An idea began to form in her mind, equal parts brilliant and terrifying. Zura, she said slowly, I think I know how we can get out of this, but it's going to be dangerous, and I'm going to need your help. As Eliana outlined her plan, Zura's eyes widened in a mix of admiration and fear. It was audacious, potentially suicidal, and their only hope of survival. With a solemn nod, Zura agreed. Together, human and alien turned to face the challenges ahead, united in their determination to overcome the odds. As they worked feverishly to implement Eliana's desperate plan, neither could have imagined the incredible journey that lay ahead, one that would take them across the stars and change the fate of two civilizations forever. Unraveling alien technology. The interior of Zura's ship pulsed with an eerie blue glow, casting strange shadows across Eliana's determined face. Her hands moved with practiced precision over the alien controls, guided by intuition and the frantic whistles of her Azurian companion. Outside, the hostile forces continued their relentless assault, each impact sending tremors through the vessel's weakening hull. Quantum flux capacitor online, Eliana muttered, more to herself than to Zura. The turn was pure technobabble, but it helped her focus on the task at hand. Now, if I can just stabilize the chronoton field. Zira trilled urgently, her feather-like crest vibrating with tension. Eliana didn't need a translator to understand the alien's meaning. Time was running out. With a final decisive gesture, Eliana activated the ship's experimental drive. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, reality itself seemed to hiccup. The world outside the viewscreen blurred, colors smearing together like wet paint. Eliana felt a sensation of weightlessness, followed by a gut-wrenching lurch. When her vision cleared, the barren landscape of Novus 3 had vanished, replaced by the star-studded void of deep space. Holy Einstein, Eliana breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. It worked. Zura, we did it. But Zura's reaction was far from celebratory. The Azurian skin had paled to a sickly lavender, all four eyes fixed on a point in space that, to Eliana, looked no different from any other. What's wrong? Eliana asked, her elation fading. Where are we? Zura's response was a series of low, mournful whistles. As she manipulated the ship's controls, a holographic star map sprang to life between them. Eliana watched in growing horror as the display zoomed out and out and out. That's not possible, Eliana whispered. But the evidence was undeniable. In their desperate bid to escape, they had done more than just flee the hostile Azurians. They had traveled clear across the galaxy, emerging in a region of space utterly unknown to either of them. As the full implications of their situation sank in, a new alert blared from the ship's console. Zura's frantic clicks confirmed Eliana's fears. The experimental jump had drained their power reserves. They were stranded, adrift in uncharted space. Eliana took a deep breath, forcing down the panic that threatened to overwhelm her. Okay, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. We're still alive. That's step one. Now we just need to figure out where we are, find a power source, and oh yeah, unravel the mysteries of faster-than-light travel. No pressure. Zura managed a sound that might have been a laugh if it wasn't tinged with hysteria. As they assessed their situation, Eliana's scientific curiosity began to overcome her fear. The ship's sensors, though operating on minimal power, were detecting phenomena she had never even dreamed of. Subspace eddies, tachyon storms, and other marvels that defied her understanding of physics. Zura, Eliana said slowly, an idea forming. Your people, how did they discover this technology? The faster-than-light drive, I mean. Zura's response was hesitant, her gestures suggesting a topic shrouded in secrecy. But as Eliana pressed, a story began to emerge. The Azurians hadn't developed the technology themselves. They had discovered it, hidden away in ancient ruins on a long-dead world. So you're not the only ones, Eliana mused. There could be others out here, maybe even the original creators of this tech. As if in response to her words, a new alert chimed from the console. An object was approaching, fast. Eliana and Zero watched in awe as a massive structure came into view. It was like no space station or ship Eliana had ever seen or imagined. Its architecture was organic, almost alive, with swirling patterns that hurt her eyes to look at directly. "Is it Azurian?" Eliana asked, but Zero's wide-eyed headshake answered before she could even finish the question. A beam of shimmering energy lanced out from the structure, enveloping their small craft. Eliana tensed, expecting the worst, but instead of weapons fire, she felt a gentle tug. They were being pulled in. As they drew closer, Eliana could make out details that both thrilled and terrified her. The station was ancient, its surface scarred by countless millennia in the void. Yet it hummed with power beyond anything humanity had achieved. "I think," Eliana said, her voice barely above a whisper, "we just found the source of your people's technology, Zira, and maybe the key to getting home." The ship glided into a cavernous docking bay, coming to rest on a platform that seemed to shift and move beneath them, adapting to the vessel's shape. As the exterior hatch arised open, Eliana and Zira exchanged a look of mingled fear and excitement. "Well," Eliana said, mustering a brave smile, "shall we go introduce ourselves to the neighbors?" As they stepped out onto the alien deck, the air around them shimmered. Eliana felt a tingling sensation wash over her body, followed by a moment of disorientation. When it passed, she realized with a start that she could understand Zira perfectly. "A universal translator," Zira said, her musical voice now clear as a bell. "Fascinating. The legends spoke of such technology, but to experience it—" "Legends?" Eliana asked, her mind reeling from the implications. "Zira, what aren't you telling me?" Before the Azurian could respond, a new voice echoed through the chamber. It was neither male nor female, neither young nor old, but somehow all of these at once. "Welcome, seekers," it said. "You have traveled far, across both space and understanding. Are you prepared to receive the legacy of the precursors?" Eliana's scientific mind was in overdrive, cataloging every detail of their surroundings. The walls seemed to pulse with an inner light, and what she had first taken for decorative patterns were actually streams of data, flowing like rivers of knowledge through the very structure of the station. "We are," Eliana said, surprising herself with her boldness. "We come in peace, seeking knowledge and a way home." The voice seemed to consider this. "Home," it mused, a concept both simple and infinitely complex. "But tell us, young ones, do you truly understand what home is?" Before Eliana could formulate a response, the air around them shimmered again. Suddenly, they were no longer standing in the docking bay, but in a vast chamber filled with swirling holographic displays. Each one showed a different world, a different civilization, all at various stages of technological development. "Behold," the voice said, "the tapestry of life in this galaxy. Countless species, each on their own path to enlightenment or destruction." Eliana watched in awe as entire histories played out before her eyes. She saw civilizations rise and fall, great wars and moments of transcendent peace. And through it all, she began to notice a pattern. "The technology," she breathed, "it's the same. All these worlds, they all discovered the same faster-than-light principles. But how?" "We seeded the galaxy," the voice explained. "In our time, we explored the furthest reaches of the cosmos. We learned, we grew, and ultimately, we ascended beyond the need for physical form. But we could not bear to see our works fade into obscurity." Zira stepped forward, her crest quavering with emotion. "You are the precursors," she said, "the ones spoken of in our most ancient texts. We thought you were only legends. Legends often have a kernel of truth, the voice replied. We left behind fragments of our knowledge, hidden on worlds across the galaxy. It was our hope that young races would discover these gifts and use them wisely, to join us among the stars. Eliana's mind was racing with the implications. But not everyone uses the knowledge wisely, do they? That's why we were attacked. Some Dazurians want to hold the technology, to use it for conquest. The chamber darkened and new images appeared. Eliana saw fleets of warships, worlds burning, entire civilizations being erased from existence. You are perceptive, Eliana Carter of Earth, the voice said. Indeed, this is the great test we set before all young races. Will they use our gifts to grow, to explore, to unite? Or will they succumb to fear, to greed, to the desire for dominance? Zoira lowered her head in shame. My people, we've failed this test, haven't we? Not yet, the voice said, a note of hope in its tone. The future is not set, which is why you are here. The holographic displays coalesced into a single image, a device of breathtaking complexity, its purpose inscrutable to Eliana's human mind. This is the Nexus key, the voice explained. With it, one can access the full breadth of precursor knowledge and technology. In the wrong hands, it could doom countless worlds to tyranny and destruction. But used wisely, it could usher in an era of peace and discovery beyond imagining. Eliana felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. And you all giving this to us? Why? Not giving, the voice corrected, offering the chance to earn. You, Eliana Carter, and you, Zira of Azuria, have demonstrated courage, compassion, and a thirst for knowledge. You represent the best of your respective peoples. Together, you have the potential to change the course of history. The chamber shifted again, and Eliana found herself looking at a series of challenges, puzzles of impossible complexity, tests of skill and character that seemed to defy the laws of physics themselves. Should you choose to accept, the voice said, you will face trials beyond anything you have experienced. You will be pushed to your limits, forced to confront your deepest fears and highest aspirations. But if you succeed, you will hold the power to shape the destiny of the galaxy. Eliana turned to Zira, seeing her own mix of terror and exhilaration mirrored in the alien's 4 eyes. What do you think? She asked. Can we do this? Zora's crest rippled with determination. I do not know, she admitted, but I do know that I would rather face these challenges with you, Eliana, than return to an Azuria that has lost its way. Eliana nodded, a smile spreading across her face. Well then, she said, turning back to address the omnipresent voice of the precursors, I guess we're in. Bring on the trials. As the chamber began to reconfigure itself for the first challenge, Eliana felt a mixture of fear and excitement unlike anything she'd ever experienced. She had come to Novus 3 seeking discovery, hoping to push the boundaries of human knowledge. Now, she stood on the precipice of unlocking the secrets of the universe itself. Whatever lay ahead, Eliana knew one thing for certain: her life and the fate of countless worlds would never be the same again. Trials of the Cosmic Forge. The chamber shimmered and transformed, reality bending in ways that made Eliana's mind reel. She and Zira found themselves standing on what appeared to be a floating platform in the midst of a swirling cosmic nebula. Streaks of vibrant color danced around them, forming intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with hidden meaning. Welcome to the Cosmic Forge, the voice of the precursors intoned. Here, the very fabric of reality is malleable. Your first trial begins now. Before them materialized a holographic representation of a solar system, but unlike any Eliana had ever seen. The central star pulsed erratically, its unstable energies threatening to tear apart the orbiting planets. Behold a system on the brink of collapse, the voice explained. Your task is to stabilize it, using only the tools of thought and will. The fate of billions hangs in the balance. Eliana's scientific mind immediately began racing, calculating orbital mechanics and stellar physics. But as she reached out to manipulate the hologram, she found her hands passing right through it. How exactly are we supposed to? She began, but Zira's gentle touch on her arm silenced her. Close your eyes, the Azurian whispered. Feel the energies around you. The cosmic forge responds to intention, not physical interaction. Skeptical but willing to try, Eliana closed her eyes. Almost immediately, she gasped. With her eyes shut, she could somehow see the system more clearly than before. She could feel the chaotic energies of the star, the gravitational pulls of the planets, the very currents of space-time flowing around them. Incredible, she breathed. Tentatively, she focused her thoughts on the star, imagining its wild fluctuations smoothing out, its course stabilizing. To her amazement, she could sense the change happening in real time. Zira, meanwhile, had turned her attention to the planets. With graceful mental gestures, she began adjusting their orbits, finding a harmonious balance that would withstand the star's residual instability. As they worked in tandem, Eliana felt a connection forming between them that transcended mere teamwork. It was as if their minds were linking, sharing insights and instincts at the speed of thought. Human ingenuity melded with Azurian intuition, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. Time lost all meaning as they reshaped the cosmic dance before them. It could have been minutes or hours when they finally opened their eyes, the once chaotic system now a model of celestial harmony. Well done, the precursor voice said, a note of genuine approval in its tone. You have saved countless lives and demonstrated a remarkable ability to adapt to new paradigms. But this was merely the beginning. The nebula around them shifted, coalescing into a new challenge. This time, they found themselves facing what appeared to be a massive, multidimensional puzzle box. Its surfaces rippled with equations and symbols from a dozen different mathematical systems, some familiar to Eliana, others utterly alien. The Enigma Cube, the voice announced. A repository of knowledge locked behind layers of logic and paradox. To unlock its secrets, you must think beyond the boundaries of your species' understanding of mathematics and physics. Eliana's eyes lit up with excitement. This was the kind of challenge she had dreamed of since she was a child, poring over advanced physics textbooks. But as she and Zira began to work on the puzzle, they quickly realized that conventional approaches would not suffice. The cube responded to their attempts to solve it in unexpected ways. Completing one layer would cause others to shift and change. Solutions that seemed logical would sometimes produce nonsensical results, forcing them to question their most basic assumptions about how the universe worked. It's like the cube is alive, Eliana mused, her brow furrowed in concentration. It's not just a static puzzle, it's adapting to our attempts to solve it. Zira nodded, her crest rippling with intellectual excitement. Perhaps that is the key, she suggested. We must not try to force a solution, but enter into a dialogue with the cube itself. Taking Zira's insight to heart, Eliana closed her eyes once more, reaching out with her mind to the essence of the Enigma Cube. She could feel its complexities, its shifting nature. Instead of imposing her will upon it, she opened herself to its rhythms, its underlying logic. Zira did the same, and soon they found themselves in a sort of mathematical meditation. Ideas and concepts flowed between them and the cube, each insight leading to new questions, new avenues of exploration. As their understanding deepened, the cube began to unfold, its dimensions expanding in ways that defied Euclidean geometry. Eliana felt her consciousness expanding with it, touching realms of knowledge that she had never imagined could exist. When the final piece clicked into place, the rush of information was almost overwhelming. Eliana saw visions of distant worlds, of technologies so advanced they seemed like magic, of the very building blocks of reality itself. As the visions faded, Eliana and Zira found themselves back on the platform, breathing heavily as if they had run a marathon. Your minds have been opened, the precursor voice said. You have taken the first steps on a path that few have ever walked, but the greatest challenges still lie ahead. The nebula churned once more, and a new trial took shape before them. This time, It was not a puzzle or a system to be fixed, but a swirling vortex of raw, chaotic energy. The crucible of creation, the voice intoned. Within this maelstrom lies the power to shape reality itself. But be warned, such power comes with great responsibility and even greater danger. Eliana and Zira exchanged glances, both excited and apprehensive. They had come so far, faced challenges beyond imagining. But this was something else entirely. "Are you ready?" Eliana asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Zura's 4 eyes met Eliana's 2, and the alien nodded solemnly. "Together," she said, "we can face anything." Hand in hand, the human and the Azurian stepped forward into the swirling energies of creation, ready to face whatever trials awaited them. As the power of the crucible enveloped them, Eliana had a fleeting thought that this must be what it felt like to be a god. Little did they know that their greatest test was yet to come, one that would challenge not just their intellect and creativity, but the very core of who they were and what they believed in. The fate of galaxies hung in the balance, and the universe itself held its breath, waiting to see what these 2 unlikely heroes would do next. The quantum nexus. As Eliana and Zira stepped into the crucible of creation, reality itself seemed to fracture around them. Colors they had no names for exploded across their vision, and sensations beyond the comprehension of their physical forms flooded their consciousness. They were everywhere and nowhere, existing in all possible states simultaneously. "Welcome," the precursor voice echoed, somehow both infinitely distant and intimately close, to the quantum nexus. Eliana tried to speak, but found she no longer had a mouth, or a body, for that matter. She was pure consciousness, intertwined with Zira's essence in a way that transcended physical boundaries. "Here," the voice continued, "the multiverse converges. Every choice, every possibility, every potential timeline intersects. Your final trial is this: navigate the infinite and find the one true path." Suddenly, Eliana and Zira were hurtling through a kaleidoscope of alternate realities. They witnessed versions of themselves in countless scenarios. In one, they saw Earth and Azuria united, leading a peaceful federation of galactic species. In another, they watched helplessly as the hostile Azurians used precursor technology to subjugate the galaxy. They glimpsed a timeline where neither of them had ever left their home planets, living out quiet, unremarkable lives. In yet another, they had become godlike beings, but at the cost of their humanity and compassion. Each reality felt as real and vivid as their own, tugging at them with the weight of infinite possibility. "Choose wisely," the precursor voice warned, "for the path you select will become the prime reality, collapsing all other possibilities." The pressure of this decision was overwhelming. How could they possibly choose one timeline out of infinite options? The fate of not just their own universe, but all potential universes rested on their decision. As they tumbled through the quantum foam of reality, Eliana felt a moment of clarity. "Zira," she communicated, not through words but pure thought, "we can't choose based on outcomes. We have to choose based on who we are, on our core values." Zira's consciousness resonated in agreement. Together, they began to focus not on the myriad futures laid out before them, but on the principles that had guided them through their journey. Curiosity and the pursuit of knowledge, compassion for all forms of life, the belief in cooperation over conflict, the importance of free will and self-determination. As they concentrated on these ideals, the chaotic swirl of realities began to coalesce. Timelines merged and separated, possibilities bloomed and withered, until finally, a single path crystallized before them. In this timeline they saw Earth and Azuria, not united in a perfect utopia, but working together despite their differences. Precursor technology shared responsibly among species ready to wield it ethically. Conflict and challenges still existed, but so did the potential for growth and understanding. Most importantly, the future remained unwritten, full of possibility and choice. This, Eliana and Zira thought as one, This is the path we choose. As they made their decision, the quantum nexus erupted in a blast of energy that reverberated across all of space-time. Eliana felt herself being pulled back, consciousness returning to her physical form. She gasped, lungs burning as if she'd been holding her breath for eons. Next to her, Zira shimmered back into existence, her iridescent skin pulsing with residual quantum energy. They found themselves once again in the vast chamber of the precursor station, the trials apparently complete. "You have chosen," the precursor voice paused, and for the first time, Eliana detected a note of surprise in its tone, wisely. Few have navigated the quantum nexus with such clarity of purpose. Before them materialized an object of indescribable complexity, the nexus key they had been promised at the beginning of their trials. It hummed with power, streams of data and energy flowing through its crystalline structure. "The nexus key is yours," the voice declared. "With it, you have the power to reshape reality, to guide the future of all sentient life in the galaxy." Eliana reached out tentatively, her fingers brushing the surface of the key. Immediately, she felt a rush of knowledge and power that threatened to overwhelm her. Equations for manipulating the fabric of space-time, blueprints for technologies beyond imagining, the collective wisdom of a species that had transcended physical form, it was all there, waiting to be unleashed. But as she shared a look with Zira, Eliana knew what they had to do. "Thank you," she said to the precursor presence, "but we cannot accept this power, not in this form." A ripple of surprise passed through the chamber. "Explain," the voice commanded. Zira stepped forward, her crest rippling with determination. "We have seen the infinite possibilities of the future," she said, "and we have learned that true wisdom lies not in having all the answers, but in asking the right questions." Eliana nodded in agreement. "The Nexus Key is too much power for any one being, or even any one species, to wield responsibly. Instead, we propose a different path." Together, Eliana and Zira laid out their vision. The Nexus Key would be reconfigured into a galactic network, allowing species across the universe to share knowledge and resources. Access to precursor technology would be granted gradually as civilizations demonstrated their readiness and commitment to ethical use. The station itself would become a neutral ground, a place of learning and diplomacy where representatives from all species could come together. As they spoke, the Nexus Key began to change, responding to their intentions. It expanded, tendrils of energy reaching out across space, connecting distant stars and planets in a web of communication and shared purpose. "Fascinating," the precursor voice mused. "In all our ends of existence, we had not considered such a possibility. Perhaps it is we who still have something to learn." The chamber hummed with energy as the transformation took place. Eliana and Zira watched in awe as their vision became reality, a new galactic order taking shape before their eyes. "You have done well," the voice said, warmth and approval evident in its tone. "The future of the galaxy is bright indeed with guardians such as yourselves to guide it." As the light of a new era dawned, Eliana turned to Zira, a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration on her face. "So," she said with a grin, "ready to go home and share the good news?" Zira's crest rippled with amusement and affection. "My dear Eliana," she said, gesturing to the vast expanse of stars now connected by the web of the Nexus network, "we are home." And as they stood together, human and Azurian, on the threshold of a new age of galactic cooperation and discovery, Eliana knew that their greatest adventure was only just beginning. The cosmic renaissance. The transformation of the Nexus Key into a galactic network marked the dawn of a new era, one that would come to be known as the Cosmic Renaissance. Eliana and Zira found themselves at the center of a universal shift, their actions reverberating across the cosmos in ways they could never have imagined. As the first tendrils of the Nexus network reached out across space, touching distant worlds and long-isolated species, a wave of change swept through the galaxy. The network acted as a bridge, not just of communication, but of understanding, allowing vastly different civilizations to share knowledge, culture, and perspectives in real time. Eliana and Zira, now revered as the architects of unity, took on the monumental task of guiding this galactic awakening. Their first challenge came swiftly as news of the network's creation reached the hostile faction of Azurians who had initially pursued them. "We're receiving a transmission," Zira announced, her crest rippling with tension. "It's from the Azurian High Command." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a stern-faced Azurian adorned with military regalia. His voice boomed through the chamber, a mixture of awe and indignation. "What have you done?" The power of the precursors was meant for Azurian hands alone. Eliana stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "The age of isolation and hoarding knowledge is over, Commander. The Nexus Network belongs to all sentient beings. We invite Azuria to join us in this new era of cooperation." The commander's eyes narrowed. "And if we refuse?" "Then you will be left behind," Zira replied, standing tall beside Eliana. "The network cannot be controlled or conquered. It can only be embraced." As if to emphasize their point, the network pulsed with energy, displaying a real-time map of the galaxy. Hundreds, then thousands of points of light began to appear, each representing a civilization joining the cosmic community. The Azurian commander's expression shifted from anger to uncertainty, and finally, to a grudging respect. Perhaps we have been short-sighted. We will need time to consider this new reality." As the transmission ended, Eliana and Zira shared a look of relief and hope. It was a small victory, but a significant one. The path ahead would not be easy, but they had taken the first crucial steps. Over the following months, as the Nexus network expanded, Eliana and Zira found themselves mediating conflicts, fostering cultural exchanges, and overseeing the responsible dissemination of advanced technologies. They traveled to countless worlds, each more wondrous than the last. On the gas giant Helios Prime, they helped broker a peace treaty between warring factions of sentient storm clouds, their lightning-like language now translatable through the network. In the crystal forests of Zinfa, they witnessed the birth of a new form of art, as the planet's silicon-based lifeforms collaborated with organic species to create sculptures that sang with cosmic harmonies. Beneath the methane seas of Triton Secundus, they aided in the development of transdimensional transportation, allowing aquatic species to explore the galaxy without leaving their oceanic homes. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. The influx of new ideas and technologies brought challenges as well as benefits. Some species struggled to adapt to the rapid changes, while others sought to exploit the network for their own gain. One particularly harrowing incident occurred in the Vela sector, where a collective of energy beings known as the Luminae had accidentally created a runaway reaction in their local star cluster. The chain reaction threatened to cause a cascading supernova event that could wipe out hundreds of inhabited systems. Eliana and Zira raced against time, coordinating efforts across the network to find a solution. It was Eliana who had the breakthrough, recalling an obscure theory from her days studying astrophysics on Earth. "We can use the network itself," she exclaimed, her eyes alight with revelation. "If we can synchronize the energy output of every connected world in the sector, we can create a dampening field to contain the reaction." Zira quickly grasped the concept, her four eyes widening with excitement. "Yes, and we can use the precursor station as a focal point to direct the field." What followed was the largest cooperative effort the galaxy had ever seen. Millions of worlds, from hyper-advanced civilizations to species just taking their first steps into space, all linked through the Nexus network to channel their combined energy. As Eliana and Zira stood at the heart of the precursor station, guiding the monumental effort, they felt the power of countless beings flowing through them. It was a moment of profound connection, a physical manifestation of the unity they had worked so hard to create. With a blinding flash and a shockwave that rippled through subspace, the runaway reaction was contained. The Vela sector was saved, and in its place stood a shimmering nebula of indescribable beauty, a cosmic monument to what could be achieved through cooperation. In the aftermath of the Vela incident, as it came to be known, support for the Nexus network soared. Even former holdouts like the Azurian High Command saw the benefits of galactic unity. The age of isolation was truly over. As Eliana and Zira stood on the observation deck of the precursor station, gazing out at the ever-expanding web of connected worlds, they reflected on how far they had come. "You know," Eliana said, a hint of wonder still in her voice, "when I first left Earth, I thought I was just going to be fixing machines on some remote outpost. I never imagined all of this." Zura's crest rippled with affection as she placed a hand on Eliana's shoulder. "The greatest journeys often begin with the smallest steps. You taught me that, my friend." Their moment of reflection was interrupted by a sudden alert from the network. A new signal was detected, originating from beyond the galactic rim, the first extragalactic contact in the history of the Nexus. As they prepared to face this new frontier, Eliana and Zira shared a look of excitement and determination. Their adventure, it seemed, was far from over. The cosmic renaissance was just beginning, and the universe itself waited with bated breath to see what wonders it would bring. "Well," Eliana said with a grin, "shall we go say hello to the neighbors?" Zira's answering trill was filled with joy and anticipation. Together, the human and the Azurian, unlikely friends turned guardians of the galaxy, set off to greet the unknown, ready to write the next chapter in the grand cosmic story they had helped to create. As the precursor station prepared for its journey beyond the galactic rim, the Nexus network pulsed with the collective excitement of trillions of beings. The cosmic renaissance had truly begun, and with it, a new age of exploration, unity, and infinite possibility.